you'll do some all day sits in the rut, or some people do, just because it makes sense. But like your point on timing there and living by the clock is so important. So let's say, I live in Pennsylvania and I have a 40-acre chunk down the road I hunt. I'm thinking, well, I got to be up at this time and I'm going to go sit till 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning and then I'm done. Or I'm going to get out of work a little early. It'll be 2:30. I'm running out to that stand. And that's the entirety of your time hunting. And you're probably sitting on stand, Snapchatting and doing whatever the hell else you're doing. And it's very hard to sort of disconnect and allow yourself to get to that different space where you're not like, okay, something has to happen, or this is the time frame where it happens. If it doesn't, it's done. And I hear this from people, and I noticed this myself, not only traveling, to elk hunt, or, where you've got 8 or 10 days, which is like a real eye opener if you come from the world I come from, because you are like, I'm just out here all day. Like there's, I don't have to be anywhere. I don't have to do anything. I don't have any cell phone reception. It's just like, okay, well, you want to go sit on the edge, you stumble across a wallow. You're like, oh, I'm just going to sit down here for 3 or 4 hours. What the hell? Like,
take my nap here. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing pushing you. And when you disconnect into that world and get to live that life for a few days and hopefully for more than a few days so you can really get into it, you kind of find that like there's this flow to stuff where once in a while, you got to kick your ass into gear because something is like evolving right now. But most of the time it's just a matter of like, all right, what's the pace that this situation dictates? And it's oftentimes not like it's not like a sprint right up the mountain.
No, usually when you start sprinting, you scare stuff off is the bottom line. You blow it, you ruin it in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, no, I love, when you think about humans are the only animal that'll get in the woods and just walk and walk and walk and walk and walk. And we do it all the time. I constantly try to remind myself, don't do that, But you watch a deer come in from a tree stand or an elk or a bear or anything, and, it's walk, walk, pause, step, step, pause, unless they're scared. And then it's, then all hell breaks loose. But bottom line is us humans are the only ones that we always have a destination. We always, and whereas it's almost like the deer and the elk, et cetera, it's an experiential, thing for them where they're constantly, they're trying to stay alive, B, they're trying to eat, C, they're trying to procreate. But during that whole process, it's never like they wake up in the morning, they're like, oh, I got to get my lunchbox and I got to make it to my 9 o'clock meeting. It doesn't exist. And the sooner that we can get that in our hearts every single season or every single hunt, the way better hunter we become, I think.
Dude, I totally agree. And I think this is where sort of the hidden value in some of these other, small game hunting and some of this other stuff comes in. When you think about, grabbing a 22 or 17 and going into the woods to hunt squirrels, you're not like, okay, well, I have to hunt down this ridge and then cut down to this and sit on this river. Like, you're just like, I'm just going to wander around till I see one and I'm going to pay attention to stuff. And kind of the same thing with running and gunning turkeys. If you take a shotgun out for turkeys, you're just kind of out there reacting to the environment and going through it. And, you might have a destination in mind to some extent, but a lot of times you're kind of just this lifeless satellite out there just doing whatever the hell you want.
Really good point.
You see, you notice more things, I think. And you just become like, okay, like there's a lot of shit going on out here that I'm, like you said, I was walking right past, and man, I'll tell you, if you think like that's not that big of a deal, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I got to get to my stand or something like that. Man, I spent a pile of time at the end of the season following my black lab around hunting pheasants on public land, and the amount of really big bucks that we had get up behind us after going through with a dog working. And, we hunt pretty quiet. Like, I don't like to make a lot of noise, but it's me and a dog, or me and a buddy and 2 dogs. And how often we'll be in a 40-yard wide strip of cattails and hunt through there and hear something and turn around and a buck gets up behind us. Like, it's so common that it's like really changed how I look at stuff. And so when you're sitting here and you're saying, yeah, we get in the woods and we just burn through there, we are walking past so much stuff. And it's, it's just experience and pacing, like understanding, okay, like if you put your head down and you walk like you would if you're in the mall or you're going to a job interview or something, you're walking by a whole bunch of animals, and they know when they see you coming exactly what's going on. Unless you're going to step right on them, they're just like, okay, buddy, see ya.
Yep. They're going to play the cards just the way that nature's taught them to play them.
Yeah, that's their, from when they hit the ground, man, that's their like primary defense is just to let predators go right on by.
Yep. No, I know one of the things like I've kind of stopped giving myself the excuse of, well, deer and elk and all kinds of wildlife, they just have way better eyes than me. Well, that's true. Certainly, there's a biological element to that. But the reality is most of the reason why they see you before you see them is because they're stopping a lot. They're pausing a lot, and if I found that the slower, and again, it's a balance because it's not just all, you can't creep out of your truck and make it 40 yards on an elk hunt and spend all day getting 40 yards and go back to your truck and have coffee. I'm not suggesting that, but man, the more often that you learn to move like wildlife moves, the more often I catch animals that I can stalk in on with my bow in circumstances that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would have not had a chance at. I did guarantee you I'd have got picked off because I'd have just been going too fast.
Yeah. And it's a matter of understanding, what the holes are in their game. I mean, I don't think, I don't know. I don't think that elk or deer have like way better eyesight than us, but they are really, really good at picking out movement, and we are really good at moving. And so I think, and even to further that point, when you're elk hunting, one thing that blows my mind is if I whitetail hunt and I just went and stood in front of a tree and a buck was walking up, I'm busted 3,000% of the time. There's no way that buck doesn't go, nah, you don't belong there, and take off. An elk, because like you said, that elk isn't married to a spot. He's seeing new parts of the mountain. He doesn't know what's supposed to be standing in front of that tree or not. And you can get away with, like, when I see how my buddies who are good elk hunters set up, it's like so foreign to me, but they know the animal, right?
Yep.
And so then when they come whitetail hunt with me and I see them doing that stuff, I'm like, no, guys, this deer knows this chunk of ground real well. He doesn't leave it a whole lot. And it's just a matter of kind of knowing what their weaknesses are and really not playing into them. And we just, like you mentioned, kind of have a tendency to play into what their strengths are, and we get our asses busted all the time.
Yeah, no, very, very true. Couldn't agree more.
I think I've been thinking about antelope a lot lately because I love spotting and stalking antelope. It's like one of my favorite things to do, and I don't get to do it every year because of schedules and stuff. And that's an animal that has such weird holes in its game where like the eyesight's freaking unreal, like the best out there. The speed, they're so confident in being able to just outrun anything, which they can. But every once in a while, they just flake out and see something moving and they run right up to it. Or they have a pretty good hole in their game for decoys, and obviously the water thing.
Yeah,
and it's just
blinds,
yeah, and it's just understanding like, okay, well, he's really good at this stuff, not so good at this, so I better lean into how I can beat him. Bears are the same way. There's certain things you can get away with.
Yep, for sure. Totally agree. It's about, and again, I think that's woodsmanship when it all comes down to it, is understanding the both the area that you're hunting and the species that you're hunting and how best to work every advantage that we have, because biologically we are no match for them if you really look at it. But we do have a good advantage to our heads if we don't get too far into our own heads about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've been thinking about that lately. Because we don't see ourselves as a predator. Like we don't, very few of us are equating ourselves.
And I think that's a mistake, by the way.
Big time. And like we know, okay, well, the wolves come in, the elk go out, or the grizzlies come in, things change. Right. But in most places, we're the worst predator. Not necessarily a Western situation as much, but generally with game animals, there's nothing more scary to them than us. And we're these fleshy, pale, hairless apes out there, but yeah, loud, dumb, but at the same time, we can change color. We have basically almost silent weapons. We have weapons that can reach out, half a freaking mile away in some situations. And we have these advantages. And, of course we can layer up, layer down. We can hide in a camouflage box out there. We can get up in the trees and ambush you. Yeah. Like we have a lot, we can put something to our eyes and all of a sudden we can see better than an antelope. Like we have a ton of crazy advantages, and we are like that. We're the predator, man. Like I don't think they differentiate between one kind of predator and the other too much. I think they're like, oh, those guys suck and I want to stay away from them. And we don't think of ourselves that way.
No, and I totally agree. And I think like I said, I think it's a mistake that we don't, just simply because I think it changes the way that you approach everything when you literally see yourself as a predator. Like, I mean, we eat a ton of wild game. I mean, we are predators in that I am looking to fill the freezer in addition to have a great time and create an outdoor, hunting memory and an experience that I'll cherish, into the rocking chair years. But yeah, when I try to think of myself as from a predator's point of view, and I've been fortunate, I've seen, I don't know, well over a dozen mountain lions in the wild. I don't even know how many. I've even shot one on the ground with my bow without dogs, an incidental encounter. And I've been able to watch them actually hunt, from across the canyon and other things like that. And it just sort of educates you like, man, I'm pretty clumsy about how I approach this compared to how methodical what's going on over there is. So, I try to think of myself that way every time I head into the woods. It's like, I am going to get one. Almost to the point where you have to create a sense of urgency that I need to eat. And if I don't get one, granted, we always have the Visa card that we can go down and take care of that if we have to. But I like to try to think of it as if I couldn't. And it makes me a better hunter.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about an example of understanding the pace in which to travel through nature to kill and eat something. Good luck finding a better example than a mountain lion.
Right.
Yeah, they got that. They're pretty dialed. So let's tell that story, because it is, I don't know, in the lower 48 if you could pick a more rare hunting success situation than killing a mountain lion with a bow in an incidental encounter. I mean, you're probably one of, a couple hundred people who's ever even come close to that.
Yeah, I met a guy that actually, I can't remember his name for the life of me, but I met a guy who's actually killed a couple with a recurve, and he stalks them. He tracks them, gets a fresh snow and tracks them in rimrock country. Really cool dude. I wish I had gotten some contact information where I met him in the woods years ago hunting elk, but no, mine was purely luck, as most of those are, and honestly, this is one of those where you're almost embarrassed to tell the story because it's too fictional to be real. And I could hunt 100 years and never ever see it again. In fact, I wouldn't believe 90% of the people that would tell me the story as it went down. But anyway, I was hunting elk. It was late September in Idaho, southern Idaho, and I had all the appropriate tags and permits. I want to make that clear because you could buy a sportsman's pack at the time. I was an Idaho resident, and you could buy a sportsman's package, and it was harm anything in the state of Idaho and put it in your freezer and you're good to go type of thing. So I had a lion tag, had elk, deer tags, bear tags, you name it. And anyway, the elk hunting had been unseasonably slow, and I spotted a big bear feeding in a big basin on some berries and stuff. And I thought, man, I got a bear tag, slow, it's getting evening. And so I proceeded to put a big stalk on this bear, and we played cat and mouse and some really thick stuff for, I don't know, probably, it seemed like an hour, but it was probably a lot less than that. It's that agonizingly close and almost can get a shot because I was inside of 20 yards several times, but it was fairly thick, tall elderberries and some other thick, stocky berry bushes. And anyway, finally he popped out and fed into a little patch of berries that was only about 10 yards in diameter with it open all around. So I stalked in. I was like sitting at about 12, 15 yards from him. I was like, well, I've got him now. When he leaves this spot, I'm going to get a shot. And almost dark, like last legal light, and I caught a little movement out of the corner of my eye, and I looked down and I could see this just a shape in this tall yellow fall grass, and my brain's like, what's going on here? Is that another bear? And then all of a sudden this lion jumps out of the grass and takes about 2 hops and piles right into the brush pile with the bear. And yeah, no kidding. Like I said, everybody listening to this or watching this is going to call me a liar. I've never told this story in public to anybody I didn't know before. But anyway, so the bear shoots out the other side of the berry patch with the lion hot on its heels. I still remember that big, long, ropey tail, that lions use as they turn. And of course, I yarded my bow back just as out of instinct. And then I'm sitting there at full draw. I hear all kinds of racket head down the hill, and I'm thinking, did I just see what I think I saw? So I let my bow down and I start hustling down the ridge where they went because I could hear them. And I got down there about 30 yards or so, and the lion had treed the bear. He was up in a big fir tree, a big mistletoe limb, and being a bear, huffing and popping his teeth. And bouncing up and down on his front feet. And I'm just sitting here like, you got to be kidding me. What am I seeing, And anyway, then all of a sudden it dawned on me, I wasn't packing a sidearm or anything. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, that's maybe not the best idea. That I just kind of crept in on this scenario, because I was probably 30, 35 yards from the tree at that point. And the cat got bored with whatever game he was playing. I still don't know if the cat came in because he heard the bear was pretty loud eating berries. That, could have sounded like a deer rubbing his antlers or something like that, or whatever was going on, or just being a cat. Just like, boo, I got you. Because he didn't, he literally landed like on the bear's hiney, but didn't it wasn't an attack. It was more like just like a pounce. Anyway, the cat got bored and started picking his way up the ridge toward me. And I thought, oh, geez, now what? And anyway, it was thick enough. I took a knee, and the cat came by me at like 12 yards, and I shot him with my bow. And anyway, he rolled a couple times and then got out of sight, and the bear was still in the tree. And I was like, well, I've got a tag for both, So I knocked an arrow real quick and drew on the bear, and I just had a frontal shot. It was a big old chocolate bear with a white blaze on his chest. And in fact, I think I shot him the next year with my gun, hunting sheds up in there. But anyway, I was at full draw, literally thinking to myself, man, I've got one. I had to shoot the lion kind of here. And I thought, I got one marginally hit predator. Do I really want to make it two? It's dark. I'm miles from the truck. And so I thought, well, I'll just get a better shot. But if you ever watched a bear get out of a tree fast, it's like a controlled fall. Like when he finally realized, he just 2 slaps on the tree and gone. And I let down my bow, and turned out the cat had just barely made it out of sight. But a big old tom, and again, I could hunt 100 years, never see it again. I don't know if it happens once in 100 years in the entire nation that a cat like that would, for whatever reason, come into that noise and then pounce on that bear. But it was crazy.
How big was the bear?
It was a really big bear. It's the biggest bear I've ever shot, and I've shot a lot of black bears. Now don't get me wrong, not like for Eastern standards, PA standards, that kind of thing, but for an Idaho, Montana bear that spends a lot of time in winter and doesn't have acorns and great food sources, I'm almost positive I shot the same exact bear, like I said, the next spring, and probably a 300-pound bear in the spring, but just a giant old mature boar.
It just makes me think about, you see all these videos of cats that'll, like creep up on a dog, jump up, whack it a few times in the head and then run away. And it just sounds like the same behavior. It
was, like I said, I know what I saw, and I did not see the lion trying to eat the bear in any real significant way, attacking the bear. It was literally, it felt like a giant cat playing like, boo, I got you. And then, like I said, the bear treed, and he kind of went back and forth under the tree a couple of times and then got bored and left. So yeah, I
wonder if there's just like a little territorial thing going on there too, where they both know they hunt and eat the same stuff, and that cat's like, dude, get out of here.
I've wondered that too. Like, if it was territorial, sort of playful, even misguided, like the cat was because the bear was in a little swale, and the cat was creeping up kind of on the ridge, and again, the bear was, he was actually laying on his back at that point in time. Bears are kind of lazy eaters when it comes time to eat berries. And he was kind of laying on his back and breaking branches down and just kind of stripping berries left and right. And it was pretty loud. And so, like I said, I don't know if like mid-flight, the second bounce, the cat's like, oh crap, it's a bear, or like, it was just weird. Like I said, I wish I would have had a GoPro on my head.